الله ورحمة الله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. So last time we spoke on verse 117, Surah Taha. وما تلك بيمينك يا موسى. صح؟
Oh yeah, I'm just gonna find it. 1 second. We start on قال ألقها.
وما تلك 17.
Okay. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وما تلك بيمينك يا موسى. قال هي عصاي أتوكأ عليها وأهش بها على غنمي ولي فيها مآرب أخرى. قال ألقها يا موسى. فألقاها فإذا هي حية تسعى. قال خذها ولا تخف سنعيدها سيرتها الأولى. واضمم يدك إلى جناحك تخرج بيضاء من غير سوء آية أخرى لنريك من آياتنا الكبرى.
اذهب إلى فرعون إنه طغى قال رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي واجعل لي وزيرا من أهلي هارون أخي أشدد به أزري وأشركه في أمري كي نسبحك كثيرا ونذكرك كثيرا إنك كنت بنا بصيرا. قال قد أوتيت سؤلك يا موسى.
وما تلك بيمينك يا موسى. قال هي عصاي أتوكأ عليها وأهش بها على غنمي ولي فيها مآرب أخرى. قال ألقها يا موسى. فألقاها فإذا هي حية تسعى. قال خذها ولا تخف سنعيدها سيرتها الأولى. واضمم يدك إلى جناحك تخرج بيضاء من غير سوء آية أخرى لنريك من آياتنا الكبرى.
اذهب إلى فرعون إنه طغى قال رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي واجعل لي وزيرا من أهلي هارون أخي أشدد به أزري وأشركه في عمري كي نسبحك كثيرا ونذكرك كثيرا إنك كنت بنا بصيرا. قال قد أوتيت سؤلك يا موسى.
محمد اقرأ وما تلك بيمينك.
يا موسى قال هي عصاي أتوكأ عليها وأهش بها على غنمي ولي فيها مآرب أخرى قال ألقها يا موسى فألقاها فإذا هي حية تسعى قال خذها ولا تخف سنعيدها سيرتها الأولى واضمم يدك إلى جناحك تخرج بيضاء من غير سوء آية أخرى لنريك من آياتنا الكبرى.
ولدان ما شاء الله قراءتك جميلة جدا ما شاء الله. الله يفتح عليك. The sister side.
اذهب إلى فرعون إنه طغى قال رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي واجعل لي وزيرا من أهلي هارون أخي اشدد به أزري وأشركه في أمري كي نسبحك كثيرا ونذكرك كثيرا إنك كنت بنا بصيرا قال قد أوتيت سؤلك يا موسى.
Ada, beside this. وما تلك
وما تلك بيمينك يا موسى قال هي عصاي أتوكأ عليها وأهش بها على غنمي
ولي فيها
مآرب أخرى قال ألقها يا موسى
ألقها
يا موسى فألقاها فإذا هي حية
تسعى
قال خذها ولا تخف سنعيدها سيرتها الأولى واضمم يدك إلى جناحك تخرج بيضاء من غير سوء آية أخرى لنريك من آياتنا الكبرى.
Very good, ما شاء الله. Any other recitals?
وما تلك بيمينك
قال رب اشرح لي صدري. اذهب إلى فرعون.
اذهب إلى فرعون إنه طغى قال رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي واجعل لي وزيرا من أهلي هارون أخي اشدد به أزري وأشركه في أمري كي نسبحك كثيرا ونذكرك كثيرا إنك كنت بنا بصيرا قال قد أوتيت سؤلك يا موسى.
ولدان. ما شاء الله. Other recitals? وما تلك
بيمينك يا موسى قال هي عصا أتوكأ عليها
وأهش
بها
ولي
فيها مآرب أخرى قال ألقها يا موسى فألقها فإذا هي حية تسعى قال خذها ولا تخاف سنعيدها
سيرتها من غير سوء Well done. Very good, mashallah. Other reciters? Very good, mashallah. Any other reciters? That's it? Okay. Thank you so much. Some great recitations. That's a very powerful passage from the story of Musa alayhi salam. Just do some rough translation and then we open the floor.
Sheikh, can I ask a tajweed question?
Yeah.
I'm sure you've explained this before, but the verse idhab, how it starts with like kasra versus how ushdud. Could you just explain that all again, please?
Sure. So basically, when the third letter is madmoom, has a dhamma on it, you begin with a dhamma. The first letter becomes madmoom as well. If the third letter is maftuh, has fatha on it, or has kasra underneath, you begin with the kasra.
Okay.
So that's why idhab ushdud.
Okay. Jazakallah khair. Yeah.
No problem. Musa, what is that in your right hand? It is my staff. He said, I lean on it, I guide my sheep with it, I also have other uses for it. God said, throw it down, Moses. He threw it down, and it became a fast moving serpent. He said, pick it up without fear. We shall turn it back into its former state. Now put your hand under your armpit, and it will come out white, though unharmed. That is another sign. We do this to show you some of our greatest signs. Go to Pharaoh, for he has truly become a tyrant. Musa said, Lord, expand my heart and ease my task from me. Untie my tongue, or make it fluent here, so that they may understand what I say. And give me a helper from my family, my brother Aaron. Strengthen my back through him. Let him share my task, so that we can glorify you much and remember you often. You are always watching over us. Allah said, Moses, your request is granted. As we normally do, we pick, think of a word or a verse that really captured your attention, something that you thought this hit differently, and made you think, no matter what the word is or what the verse is.
Can it be something that you don't quite understand?
Sure. This is something that captured your attention as well.
Yeah.
Okay, who may begin with Simon?
Definitely the ayah, it is my staff. He said, I lean on it, restrain my sheep with it. I also have other uses for it.
So the verse, the whole verse.
Yes.
He asked her. Okay. You will be asked why.
No problem.
You're Vivian.
لنريك من آياتنا الكبرى.
لنريك من آياتنا الكبرى.
خذها.
خذها. Good. كيف؟
قال رب اشرح لي صدري.
The sister side is Allah.
وما تلك بيمينك يا موسى غير سوء آية أخرى
One more time, please.
بيضاء بيضاء
Oh, okay. بيضاء غير سوء. Maria, maybe? The whole lot. Zainab?
Oh, I'm not saying.
Oh, my apologies.
Oh, my name's Hikmah.
Hikmah, so are you a new student? Are you
Yeah.
resident?
Yeah, yeah.
A nice name, mashallah.
That's it, thank you.
How did you come up with this name? Hikmah.
Yeah.
Okay, how interesting. Is there a theory behind it or something?
Pardon? Sorry?
Is there a theory behind the name, that name? Or you just a random choice?
It's the birth given. Yeah, my parents picked it.
Okay, a great name.
Thank you.
I've never come across it.
My name is, sorry. My ayah is قال رب اشرح لي صدري.
So the same one. Yes, the next one.
فألقاها فإذا هي حية
تسعى.
تسعى
فألقاها. Qada. Choices? Huh?
Also قال ربي اشرح لي صدري
رب اشرح لي صدري. Any other ones? Okay. For me, it's the whole passage to be honest, but I go with one I think maybe I mean. Sana, why did you pick this one?
I guess it would probably be better to pick the one before as well with you, because it's more to do with the idea of how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is asking Musa salam a question of what is in your right hand, as if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala obviously has all of the knowledge already of exactly what's in his hand, and yet Musa salam still responds with, "It is my staff, I lean on it, and with it I beat down branches," almost knowing that what the reason Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is asking him is like to point out something like that he maybe is missing, or to like for us as well as readers of the Quran.
Wonderful. What does that teach us?
I think that teaches us like certain things you might think are given or like obvious things, like a staff being in your hand. Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows exactly what this is for. I know what this is for, and yet in the Quran Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chooses to question this in order to make us also question like the things that we take for granted and the deeper meanings behind
Wonderful.
the things that we always carry on and don't think about.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much, Slams, for that. If I might call this the power of reflection, asking Musa alayhi salam to reflect, even though it's a very given thing, very basic thing. Allah is asking to reflect on it. And so, again, maybe come to this later. Thank you so much for that. Ahmed?
I think just the mention of the two ayat, the big sort of signs that he was shown, and the sort of contrast between these sort of signs that he's shown, and I mean later on, I guess in the story, the signs that the Pharaoh and his people are shown as well, also like very sort of clear signs, and yeah, just a contrast. I guess he accepts them and he follows the message, and they sort of don't, they reject it, kind of thing.
When the Quran says لنريك من آياتنا الكبرى, for us to show you the greatest of our signs, what could that be?
I mean, the fact, I guess, I mean, this sort of thing.
Allah has given Moses a lot of signs, by the way. Like in the Quran, Surah Al-Araf mentions 9 big signs, 9 big miracles.
Yeah, that's sort of
What
what
is
I
this
mean.
big one? Just what could that be, Ahmed?
Yeah, I think it's just like some signs. I guess they're just clearer than others. Like this sort of sign of like a snake in sticking your hand turning into a snake. Is clearer to people than I guess some of the other signs around like we see around the world. And I said this contrast, like yes, like you say, 9 signs that the Pharaoh's people were shown, and how they rejected all his signs, even though they're also very big signs, like things that you don't expect to see in your day-to-day life, and they only came when Musa came with his message. So this sort of comparison, I guess, between those two.
You know, the Quran does not really clarify what this big sign is. The way I see it is simply how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala turns Fir'aun's kingdom upside down at the hand of one single person who gets to marshal an entire nation that was persecuted in Egypt. And Fir'aun, back in those days, he's probably the greatest man on the entirety of the universe. We are told so many things about how powerful he was. Someone who lived for 400 years, we've been told in so many narrations. Almost never got sick. The only man in history that we know who claimed to be a Lord as such, or God as such. And Allah is telling him, you know, this very simple man is going to destroy this whole kingdom. And the Quran in somewhere else in Surah Al-Baqarah talks about something quite similar to this. كم من فئة قليلة غلبت فئة كثيرة بإذن الله. In many generations, you know, small, you know, a very powerful, you know, powerless group of people with faith can surely defeat, you know, the greatest of armies. And we've seen this through the example of David and as mentioned in Surah Al-Baqarah. So to me, this strikes as the greatest sign out of all the miracles that Musa alayhi salam was given. But these are all possibilities here. But yeah, thank you so much for that.
So it's not directly referring to these 2 signs here, the snake and the.
To me, it seems that the Quran is talking about a future event.
Okay.
لِنُرِيَكَ, we will show you. It hasn't been shown yet, so it's for the future. So you're being given those miracles to support you. So I don't think the miracles per se are the ayah. The ayah is what comes out of this.
Okay.
These are just sources of support. Allahu Alam.
I was going to say regarding that, I wonder if we can read it لنريك من آياتنا الكبرى اذهب إلى فرعون, as in to be able to see our great signs, go to Fir'aun. I was thinking آياتنا الكبرى could possibly be Fir'aun himself, as in that example that Allah wants to show him. But I guess yours makes more sense now.
Interesting. So for you to see this great miracle, you need to go to Fir'aun.
لنريك من آياتنا الكبرى اذهب إلى فرعون.
Absolutely, it does complement. It does complement. You know, in Surah Yunus, it talks about, you know, when Fir'aun was drowning, Allah says, فَالْيَوْمَ نَنَجِّيكَ بِبَدَنِكَ. Today we're gonna be saving you, your body. لِتَكُونَ لِمَنْ خَلْفَكَ آيَةً, so that you may become a sign for the people who would come after you. This actually can be, I mean, as an embodiment of this, how this transformation can happen. خذها ولا تخف.
خذها.
There's a space in the basement.
The ability to possibly overcome fear and the direct the direct conditions you can see with your hand. You can see a serpent, but you're asked to pick it up. He does exactly as he's commanded. Almost in that ability to believe in what is to come, or to have that deep faith to be able to listen to the commandment, almost no matter what he can see with his eyes, but rather that complete trust.
So Qudha, as in to overcome the fear. And
yes, and to show his deep trust and commitment to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Khudha, he'll take it, whether it's a serpent, whether it's a stick.
Interesting. So trust Allah.
Yes.
No matter what it is. Mainly because Allah is the one who told you.
Yes, it's to do with the commandment, not to do with like blind faith or
To
not
know the
using
commandment.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Interesting.
Adhering to commandment, استقم كما أمرت.
You see, subhanAllah, in Surah, the other day I was thinking about this in Surah Al-Zariyat. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala discusses as one of the signs of the people of Ihsan. آخذين ما آتاهم ربهم إنهم كانوا قبل ذلك محسنين. They take whatever Allah presents them. A challenge they deal with. A blessing they take. A difficult situation they handle. They don't complain. These are people with initiatives and they take action. Absolutely. Thank you for that. Yeah, Kaysan.
Yeah, I feel like with my ayat, I feel like everyone chose the same one because it's more multi-dimensional. It's like not
Yeah, three people
one-sided.
chose Rabbi Shrah li Sadri.
Yeah, it's not really a one-sided thing with Musa. It's like asked to expand his breast. Initially, well, in my translation, it says expand his breast. And that's what I thought at first. Firstly, I thought of that as in he wants to become more upright and have that courage by expanding his chest that way, and then so that he would be able to face Quran. But then when you said expand his heart, then I was that made me think. I was like, maybe there's a deeper meaning to this in the sense that he wanted to have that deeper trust in Allah that.
Okay. Before you make your point, I need to clarify something. The Quran uses various expressions. The Quran uses sadr. And it uses qalb. It uses aql. It uses fu'ad. Normally when the Quran says sadr, it means chest. But the point is not the chest, it is the heart. فإنها لا تعمل الأبصار ولكن تعمل القلوب التي في الصدور. It is not the eyes that don't see, but the hearts that reside in the chests. So that means the heart is inside the chest or inside the breast. Okay? The aql is the function of thinking. Muslims of course have different views on that, but they all believe it's when the heart practices critical thinking and intellectual its intellectual function, it becomes aql. Fu'ad is the innermost bit of the heart. وأصبح فؤاد أم موسى فارغا. That's the deepest part of it. So these are very close, very related concepts. So, yes, please.
Can you
Yes.
explain the last part again?
So, okay. Sadr is chest. Qalb is heart. Aql is mind, perhaps, or reason. Reason is a bit wrong. Fu'ad, possibly, it's heart as well, or intellect. Like it's intellect, it's more intellect. Or intuition. I don't know. The English language is a little bit more limited when it comes to these things. The heart lies in the chest. Aql, or mind, or reasoning, is not an entity, is not an organ, it's a function. So when this organ practices reasoning, it becomes a mind. Like with my eyes, when I see hada ibsar, this is the fact I'm seeing now. That's a function. Because the function of the eyes is to see things. The function of the ears is to listen to things. The function of the qalb, that gets tricky here, is to reason with things, but also to feel things. in a nutshell, the Quran does not differentiate emotions from reasoning. That this connection that we have in our minds to do with the heart and the mind doesn't exist in the Quran. The Quran says they are both one and the same thing. Yeah. Have you made your point? Or not yet?
Pretty much.
Yeah, okay. So expand my heart, expand my chest. Yeah, it's a very, very, very open-ended sentence, indeed. Someone said, "Wama tilka," was it Salma? Yeah.
I just found it interesting how the name Musa was positioned in the sentence, because this is like where the conversation really starts, and the fact that the name was at the end kind of is more sincere, nicer tone than if his name was at the beginning of the sentence. Like, if for example, my parents were calling me and they said my name first, I'd be a bit more scared than if they asked a question and then my name was at the end.
Interesting.
But I just found that interesting because this whole conversation is kind of building trust and more like an informal conversation. So I found it interesting how his name was positioned.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, in Arabic, normally, when a phrase begins with something, it means this thing that's being started with is the most important point. So if the whole point is addressing Moses as a person, the Quran would have begun by saying Musa, ma tilka bi yamin. But the fact that it's reversed says that the interest is in the point is about the stuff itself. And you raised another important point. Allah is engaging with Musa, and I can imagine Musa alayhi salam being in awe of that encounter, and Allah somehow engaging with him by way of calming him down. I'm being reminded of Surah Al-Muzammil and Mudaththir, when Allah addresses the Prophet ﷺ when he first encounters Jibreel. He's in a state of awe and he's shaking and this and that, and he goes back to Khadija asking him to cover him up, and the Quran addresses the Prophet by saying, Ya ayyuhal muzammil, oh you the one who is covered, who has been wrapped. The Quran is engaging with the Prophet ﷺ in his most direct situation, like as if Allah is telling him, I know what you're going through, literally, and I'm engaging with your life directly. Absolutely. Who said Bayda and Laytur?
No, I was curious how this miracle is related to the rest of the passage. Like, it feels, or I just don't understand how this miracle is related to all of the other things that he's going through at this time.
So you're asking what is miraculous about it?
No. I mean, how is his hand coming out wide related to like him facing Fir'aun? Like, why is it in this point of the passage? Like, why is this miracle mentioned?
Oh, okay. That's a very good question. It's the idea of the Quran says, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَا مِن رَسُولٍ إِلَّا بِلِسَانِ قَوْمِهِ. Whenever Allah sends a messenger or a prophet to a people, they speak their own language. And this does not mean just the language, but also mean the most powerful thing that this culture or the civilization depends on. The culture of the day, the civilization of the day depended primarily on magic. The idea of changing the essence of things. As if Allah is telling Musa, here you go, you have your own hand, I'm changing this hand. For them to be convinced that you have something that's even more unique than what they have. So the capacity to change things, almost chemically. So your own hand is changing into a different thing. Just to emphasize that you're not alone. Yeah. We have another Rabbi Shrah li Sadri. Yes, anyway.
To me, this thought, like, it's very powerful because it shows it literally that like Prophet Musa was so anxious and like scared of accepting this like the prophecy basically, and that like after all of these miracles and all of these things that like Allah told him like it's fine, it's okay, he's like still like asking for that strength and asking asking for the people to understand him, because like to me, I get the feeling that he truly understood the strength of the message, and he didn't feel strong enough to deliver it. So he's asking God for that strength.
Interesting. It's the fact that you chose the word stutter is a very interesting one. Whether Musa alayhi salam had what we identify today as someone who's a stutterer, is this the same thing? I don't think Musa alayhi salam had some sort of a clinical impediment as such. If you read the Bible, it talks about him being slow in speaking. He takes time to express himself, and when he does, he's not the most eloquent. But I don't think. I mean, it's a possibility. But it's not necessarily the case. But just, you're absolutely right. He does understand that the hefty nature of the task, and he's asking for some strength through the heart. Absolutely. Hikmah.
I chose this because it was the beginning to the dua, where it's like for clearness in speech and for confidence as well, because when you're presenting something, sometimes obviously you get nervous, and that's something that I say to kind of like renew my intention. I say the same like dua before I like present something, I want to speak about something, so I know like it helps me just clarify my thoughts better and for my speech to come out more clearer. So it's more like a practical thing for me, so that's why I chose it.
Very true, very true. I mean, I like it when someone gives a khutbah and they begin with this dua, Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri, just to get my message across. Sometimes you might be speaking, your language is fine, but you really can't get a good grab of what you're trying to say. There is, if anyone studied Greek logic is based on the idea of having two premises plus a conclusion. You begin with a premise, a second premise, and then those two premises would lead to a conclusion. So that means you have to structure your thinking. One of the key critics of this type of logic was Ibn Taymiyyah. Ibn Taymiyyah says actually people practice it anyway without studying Greek logic. So he says, لا يحتاجه الذكي ويستغني عنه البليد. Like the one who's stupid doesn't even need it because it's a very common thing. So it's a human thing to structure the thinking, but sometimes when you're not very clear, or I don't know, it does happen to us. You just try and you have something to say, but it doesn't add up. So maybe because you're afraid, it's a difficult situation. We do have those moments. So it does indeed relate. نعم.
دكتور خالد بالفرد السادس في الفوتبول.
والله ما شاء الله. I didn't know this. ما شاء الله. Probably sound as I heard you probably starting khutbahs with it. One of you guys starts with
definitely here.
I really like it. Perhaps. Allah, do we have any other? I think we have Taha probably.
Yes, I chose this ayah because I think it shows a very major miracle of Moses, the fact that the staff turns into a snake. I found it really interesting.
فألقاها فإذا هي حية تسعى. What is particularly interesting about it? Or you just because of the language, how it has been expressed?
A staff, like a life has been given to a staff.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Changing the essence of things.
Yeah.
Surely.
And how God can give life to anything.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. What's your name?
Farah.
Farah. Where are you from, Farah?
Sorry?
Where are you from?
Jordan.
Jordan, mashallah. And Hikmah?
Nigeria.
Nigeria. Nice to have you with us. Another one said Rabbi shrah li sadri, I guess. Or is that everyone? It's fine, you don't have to speak, but just
like
huh?
I just like it, honestly.
Sorry?
I
I would think, oh, that's a good enough reason. Absolutely, absolutely. Well, as I said, for me, it's وَمَا تِلْكَ بِيَمِينِكَ يَا مُوسَى, even though the whole passage is incredible. I do share what Sana said, even though Allah knows what it is. He's asking Moses, what is it? And just to give a bit of context, with Ibrahim alayhi salam, we see the formation of a thinker, of a critical thinker. So throughout the Quran, Ibrahim comes across as someone that Allah prepares in terms of critical thinking, destroying the idols of that lie and reside in people's minds. We've said probably last, I don't know, a couple of days ago perhaps, that when there are idols in every society, and with those idols you have different responses from people. There are people who don't have a sense of responsibility, they wouldn't react, they would just, it's nothing to do with us, let people believe in what they believe. You have someone who actually keeps away from that, say, okay, I'm not going to engage. There are people who engage despite knowing that this is wrong, and you have people who say, okay, who avoid that practice, but they haven't done anything about it. Ibrahim alayhi salam does not just remain, does not just verbally critique that, but he actually takes action. So that he gets introduced as one of the most critical thinkers in the entirety of the Quran. With Ibrahim, with Musa alayhi salam, so with Ibrahim, we see the formation of a thinker. I guess with Musa alayhi salam, we see the formation of a leader. A leader who doesn't aspire to be a leader. And Musa alayhi salam doesn't think I'm qualified enough. Give it to my brother. As we said before, last week, in Surah Al-Shu'ara, he said, I don't think I'm qualified, give it to my brother Harun, he's more qualified. He's older, he's more eloquent, he's more fluent, he is, in so many senses, he's more appealing to the people. I'm not. But Allah says, no, I make out of you someone who changes the civilization of the day. And that's a really big thing. And Musa alayhi salam in the Quran is the most mentioned prophet ever. 125 times Musa alayhi salam is mentioned. So we see the formation of a leader. And when I thought, وَمَا تِلْكَ بِيَمِينِكَ يَا مُوسَى, and I tried to relate this to the idea of leadership. The first thing that really strikes me about that is, first of all, before I come to this, thinkers and leaders, they are both reformers. Reformers means muslihin, right? They reform how people live and think. That's why when Musa alayhi salam killed that Egyptian 10 years back in Surah Al-Qasas, and he was on the verge of fighting against the second one, the man said to him, إِن تُرِيدُ إِلَّا أَن تَكُونَ جَبَّارًا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَمَا تُرِيدُ أَن تَكُونَ مِنَ الْمُصْلِحِينَ. You want to be an oppressor on earth, and you don't have interest in being a reformer, a Muslim. Thinkers are reformers, leaders are reformers. And as we said before, the Quran differentiates between being salih and being muslih. A salih is a good person, righteous person. Al-muslih is someone who is not just a salih, is not just righteous, but he actually tries to fix others, tries to perfect others after perfecting themselves. Right? Even though this is an ongoing journey, it's not like an event or something. So, how do they start? Those muslihun, those reformers. In today's life, we are often critical of things. So many things. I don't like the way the mosque runs. I don't like the way my boss is being told. I don't like whatever. Right? Okay, and then I ask you, what is your proposal? How do I fix this? You tell me, okay, people would have different views. Like, I want to be the bigger masjid. I want to have better people running the university. Someone better able to teach that course. Right? Okay, I tell you, or can't afford this, we don't have the money for that. So the question of resources comes by. And at this point, the vast majority of people would pause and stop. This is beyond us. To get a bigger masjid, we need millions and millions of money, right? We don't have that, khalas. As if we didn't have this conversation, because it's beyond us. I can't really impose anything on my university because they employed this lecturer, has qualifications even though he's not the best teacher, but he's been employed by the university, he's been interviewed, and he went through a process of, he's been chosen for a good reason, because of their qualifications. What do? Khalas, I remain silent, because it's beyond me. And that's where reform dies out at this stage. So it's not enough for one to have an open eye. It is not enough to identify what the problem is. So here we have people who identify that there is a problem. We have a problem with this course. We have a problem, the masjid is not spacious enough. The only solution I have is to change the lecturer at uni or to find a bigger masjid. Those two options are beyond me. I lose hope. Allah doesn't want us to be like that. Muslihun don't give up. They use the most basic things they have. The most basic things they have. As if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is reminding us, and by way of teaching Musa alayhi salam, with that one single thing that you have in your hand. You know, think of the word what is in your hand, not in its literal meaning, but also in terms of its metaphorical meaning. As in, what do you have in your hand now? What resources do you have? So I have the most basic resource. It's just my stuff. It says, this very little stuff will be the first weapon with which you're going to be destroying Fir'aun. And Musa, when he said he doesn't see in this stuff nothing but, he names things. أهش بها على غنمي أتوكل عليها, I lean on it. وأهش بها على غنمي, I guide my sheep with it. And I have some other uses for it. He had no idea that this very stuff would be the change maker. Right? But Allah opened Moses' eyes to something that he hasn't thought of it before. Very basic thing, everyone has it. I don't see what the value of it is. Right? So Allah says to him, Alqiha, it becomes a snake. Throw it down, it becomes a snake. Through this snake, you're going to be fighting the magicians of Fir'aun in that elitist city back then, Manf, according to most of the historians in Egypt. And your own hand, everyone has a hand. That's your miracle. If you use this, you know why is it for? How we may make use of it. The change you're going to be introducing is through how you use the most basic resources that you have. And Musa is engaged. If you ask me today, what is in your hand? I might actually be too arrogant to engage with this. I'm not stupid, like everyone knows this is a pen. And everyone knows I write with it. That's it. Musa is engaged. And he talks as if Allah doesn't know. And he talks, honestly, think of a kid. If you ask a kid what is with you in your hand, so that this is a ball, I play with it, I take it, but they engage. Musa is literally doing the same thing. Right? And he's counting the usages of it. So the first thing that we get to learn here is that sense of, you may call it self-awareness. As a Muslim, I need to be aware, what do I have now? What are the resources that I have? One can dream of things like, I wish I had £1 million. I could actually employ the better lecturer. I wish I had 2 million, I could have bought a bigger masjid. Right? These are dreams. Can take years and years for you to, if you're really serious about it, it can take years and years. But the first point is self-awareness. What do I have? As if Allah is asking Moses to think about this, to reflect. What resources do I have? I have a very basic resource. It doesn't get even more basic. You know, the famous Algerian philosopher Malik ibn Nabi, who died in 1973, talks about 3 elements with which any civilization rises. The first one is al-insan, the human himself, Homo sapiens. Do you know what Homo sapiens mean? What does it mean literally?
5 fingers?
Huh?
5 fingers, was it?
5 fingers. No.
One.
Homo is human.
Yeah.
Sapiens, what does it mean? Sapiens is the known human, who knows things. Right? So that insan is the beginning of any civilization. So the known man, literally, but the known human is a more common translation today. So the first element is al-insan. And then he says al-waqt, time. You need time. 3 said it's at-turab, dust. As in, the most basic thing that you can own. It's nothing. As if Malik bin Nabi is trying to say, you know, everyone has those most basic resources. You have your own self. And you can make time if you wish. We always have time whenever we want. And at-turab, the most basic thing. If those 3 combinations work together, they can definitely make a civilization. At least they can make a change at an individual level. And if you get more people who are aware of this combination, they can definitely make a nation stand. Right? So the Muslim is aware of the basic resources that they have. But how they make use of it is a big one. And we can actually ask ourselves this very question. You know, perhaps to me, I read it this way, like as if Allah is telling Moses, is teaching Moses how to be a leader by those things. Think and actually revisit, re-examine the ordinary things that you have. Those ordinary things can change into extraordinary things if you just know how to use them. For the vast majority of people, you know, they don't see things, they don't see the invisible things behind the objects they see. But leaders don't. Leaders can identify, you know, the potentials that, you know, that other people would have. You know, I can see that there's a gift in this man. If he only uses it, if he only works on it, that can change that person from a person of potentiality to a person of actuality. Actualizes the potentials that he has or that she has. That's what leaders do. They put your hand on yourself, on your own gifts, on your own capacities, on your own hidden talents. So as if Allah is telling Musa alayhi salam, do not see only the external side of things, but, you know, see what they hold, the value they hold, which, you know, many people won't see. So if you may think about this through the prism or through the lens of leadership, the idea of self-awareness is an important one, and I have to become aware of the resources that I have. And every age, every generation will have its own resources, but every one of us literally has resources. But we don't reflect on that. That's why I talked in the very beginning when someone has raised this point, I called it the power of reflection. Asking Musa to reflect on what do I have? What is in my hand now? As it says in the famous hikmah, Do whatever you can with what you have where you are. Do whatever you can with what you have where you are, wherever you are. Otherwise, you can always be dreaming of things. I wish I had this, I wish I had that, but it never happens. Everyone will always have wishes. So the power of reflection, I need to reflect on what I have now, currently, and I can use towards achieving what I aim to achieve. So that's self-awareness. But also the idea of re-examining the basic stuff that we have. Re-examination. Just apply this to oneself. What am I good at? What do I take for granted? But if I use it more cautiously or consciously, things could change. But also, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is preparing Musa for a heavy task. We have 2 pages in Surah Taha where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is preparing Musa gradually. This, we don't know how many days, during how many days did this happen, this conversation go. Musa discovering this fire, checking it up, having this conversation with Allah. How many days, Allahu Alam, how many years, Allahu Alam. Could be within a couple of minutes, we have no idea. But Allah has prepared Moses by engaging with him actually. That engagement, that sense of gradualism. Allah, we believe Allah is the most powerful, right? He could have said to Moses, go ahead, I'll be with you. Allah didn't do that. But he said, I will address your fees first. And I will show you, your own key resources. And I will teach you that sense of gradualism. I will engage with your own concerns before I send you to Fir'aun. Again, that sort of gradual engagement, gradual preparation of Musa alayhi salam before that hefty task. So I honestly read a lot in that beginning question, وَمَا تِلْكَ بِيَمِينِكَ يَا مُوسَى. As Salman said, Allah knows already what is it. It's a very basic thing. You could actually cheat in the question and say, what is this? That's a useless question. Actually, Musa engages because he knows there is something behind this. And it is, I look at it this way. Allah is alerting Musa that extraordinary things can come out of the ordinary things that one has. If only we just reflect and try to make do with whatever we may have. And if we, I don't know if we have the time to do that, but we can actually make an exercise out of this, either individually or collectively. As in, think of it this way. We may call it the staff challenge. Actually, we just made up right now. What is in my hand now? I'm asking you. Just imagine Allah is asking you that very same question. Right? Allah is asking me, and is asking every one of us, what is it that you have in your right hand? What is it that you own now? I own this. I have this in my hand right now. What do I do with it? You could say so. Just think. You need to think. Would you like to do this exercise? I've never done it before. I'm just trying to go through Moses' mind. How do we answer this? Let's do it. Or we can think of a collective thing, but that wouldn't be as fun. Yes, I think
you could probably just think of an item we have on us, something like that.
Us collectively, or us individually.
Either, I'm not sure.
Let's okay. I know people would be scared to open up.
It is very personal.
Yeah, exactly. It's really personal. it's hard to also identify a collective. Okay, let's think of it this way. Let's think of a collective thing that we all have. Any ideas? Yes, yeah.
Living in a safe country with freedom to do things and express what you want, what you have in mind and stuff like that.
Wonderful. But that's too broad though. We don't own it as such.
Okay.
Yes, yeah.
Generally, a good level of education.
A good level of education. But it's not available to everyone.
Oh, you mean like
Yeah, something that we have in our hands as such.
who's we?
Maybe-
So,
Huh?
who's we?
Like, who's we?
Who's we?
Us
Us,
or
be this group. Think of, okay, that's a think of social media. It's a tool that we all have, don't we? Oh, education. Actually, education is a good one. But it's a very obvious one as well. I say education, everyone knows. But yes, it definitely can be. Absolutely. Social media, yes, some.
I was gonna say access to like groups of people, like the amount of the different types of people that you living in the UK. You can speak to groups of like, you know, especially being a Muslim, like the older generation of Muslims, as well as you have access to, you know, the new like Christians that you know, it's very easy to, you basically have access to a lot of different types of people.
Accessibility, absolutely. Other things we can think. So we thought of education, a good one, a good country, a safe country, a good one. Social media is something in our hands. Accessibility, access to people, access to things, absolutely. Other thoughts that might think of? Yes, take us out.
Given social media, maybe being able to present yourself on a wide scale without having to.
Wonderful. Let's even be more specific. Having a platform where I can just express whatever I might have. Absolutely. So this is what is in our hands now. If Allah is asking you, what do you do with it? How do you make use of it? How do I now make use of it? That's the question. Just give it 1 minute to think. Ahmad, you thought of a country, a safe country, how to set education. I thought social media even, and Kaysan qualified this by saying having a platform, absolutely. How do I use it now? How can I better use it in the future? How can I make a firm intention that I'll be using this for the life to come? That's how change happens, by the way, and how habits are inculcated and introduced to our lives. So we have so many blessings, don't we? But we take things for granted, we just don't use them, we don't activate them. That's the thing. Any thoughts?
With accessibility, one can, you know, set up discourse.
Do you do that now? Or you don't?
Somewhat, I'd say, in a sense. Like in terms of accessibility, so in a personal like situation of in Portsmouth, of like the older generation of uncles and Muslim uncles and the younger generation of like, you know, people like us who study in the UK, born in the UK, and that discourse, alhamdulillah, starting steps to that.
Discourse between the older generation and the younger ones. Good. So you're saying that you've used your capacity to work on those two different generations, by creating networks or links or something. Wonderful. Ahmad.
I think maybe adding on maybe a bit to Sanaz is also the accessibility of like knowledge in general, and accessibility, like you say, accessibility of things. We have access to so many things right now through.
Are you happy with how you use them now, personally?
With something like, I mean, to be honest, there's definitely a lot of room for improvement.
Mm.
But this, I'm looking at his point now. I can't, for my one, I haven't really thought too much about it. But this
That's another
accessibility
thing,
of
we
like
keep
knowledge.
looking at
and
other
stuff.
people's points, but we need to examine our own.
Sure. Again, safe country, like it gives you like the ability to express yourself.
Say I can go. There is a I personally I suffer from this. Like I know there is a good talk at Bristol University or Oxford University, and it's not that far. But I'd say that's not good example. Because I sit down and I read a good article, so instead of going, that still is a good. I'm trying to think of a bad thing, but. How? Any thoughts? You said education.
I guess somewhat trying to share whatever little knowledge I might gain, whether it's languages or the degree that I had. The idea of maybe teaching people around you that might not have the access that I had.
Wonderful. So this is what you do now.
To a certain extent.
And do you want to maximize this in the future?
Oh, sure.
Okay,
Surely.
perfect. So you're somehow aware of what you have now in hand.
Somehow, yeah, I think it's for me it's hard to miss, at least on a personal level, because it's always been like a very big part of my upbringing, and then even now as an adult I see the value of it.
Good.
So it's
Wonderful.
serious.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Hey, Sam.
You're gonna kill me for this response. In terms of the platform, funnily enough, you may or may not know, I'm trying to run for religious affairs.
Yes.
For Bath University Islamic Society. My name is Kai Son, by the way. But yeah, regardless, I was able to use my platform to sort of make that proposition of the Masjid Cat and find out if that was something that would be of interest and potentially alhamdulillah, be able to reach a lot of people just through the use of my phone, which is a good way of being able to use it versus having to talk to people directly.
Wonderful. I mean,
there's a leak upstairs.
Sorry?
The prayer room upstairs is leaking.
Okay, I'll check that out. Thank you so much.
Is there
of course, much can be said on this exercise, but also, I think we need to take some more time just to think about this on our own personal time, in terms of skills, talents, capacities that we may use to advance, use for better betterment of the future. Another thing that I find really instructive about this passage is the dua that Musa alayhi salam made, obviously, and I'm struck by the fact that Musa was asking mainly for skills, not really made stuff. I think at some point when we were having a commentary on Surah Al-Kahf, we talked about the difference between having resources and being resourceful. Musa alayhi salam is asking to be resourceful. But asking Allah to have a more expansive heart, a more eloquent, a good helper. He could have asked him for a large army that can be with him to fight against Fir'aun, but he chose more skills, and he chose actually internal skills to do with the heart, the state of the heart. Make me shrah li sadri, expand my heart, could mean so many things. Could mean, because Musa in other surahs talks about his heart being somehow he's very quick to get angry. So ask Allah to make me calmer, not to become reactionary to things, but also to become confident and courageous. Then after that he asks for communication skills. How do I articulate what I have? the idea of having good communication. I'm talking to a tyrant. I need to really know how to speak and be fluent with my ideas and that. And then he talks about another extended thing, that is the idea of sharing a responsibility, the idea of collaboration. وَأَشْرِكْهُ فِي أَمْرِي, collaborating with some, the power of collaboration, the power of delegation. You know, look at us today. One of the most difficult things that people would have is working together. You know, sometimes it does come with challenges, but the benefits of it are just unbelievable. So Musa alayhi salam is very humble to ask for that, to actually think that his brother is better and is more superior in terms of capacities, and that he doesn't have that sort of jealousy or envy or something. He's actually asking for a collaboration and a cooperation between his brother and himself. Again, he's asking for, not for resources, but to become more resourceful. I found that very instructive. One other thing, the difference between كَيْ نُسَبِّحَكَ كَثِيرًا وَنَذْكُرَكَ كَثِيرًا. Tasbih is to literally exonerate Allah, and to say that He is far above whatever imperfections that people may attribute to Him. وَنَذْكُرَكَ كَثِيرًا, al-dhikr is to attribute to Allah whatever is praiseworthy. So there is a negative one and a positive one. The negative one is to say that He is not this, He is not that. And the positive one is to say He is this, He is that. That's the difference between tasbih and dhikr. Any other thoughts?
I think the miracles that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows Musa alayhi salam, I think I completely agree with you in terms of how it can form ways of showing Musa alayhi salam how to be a leader. I think another lesson that it teaches is the lesson of tawakkul, incredibly, because you look at the reason, especially the staff, right? What is the staff used for? Even Musa alayhi salam said he uses it for his most basic needs. He uses it for, just stabilizing himself, getting the things off the branches and herding his sheep. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, throw it down. And to me, it shows that the things that if you look in your life and the things that you take for granted, right? These things that we talk about, this reflection, you don't associate these things with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like how a stick can give you support. How can you associate that with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Yet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling Musa, by telling him throw it down, is that almost everything is done with the intention of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it just makes me think of you order something on your phone from Amazon or something, or whatever site you want to order it from. And it comes to you, think, my phone and the supplies, that's the one reason I got the item. You don't realize that in every single action Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is involved. And that's the main thing, and I think that's important in getting Musa alayhi salam prepared for the task ahead as well, because this task ahead, as you said, is a massive task, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showing that through these miracles that I am there in every step. I'm with you in every step. As your staff is there for you, I am there for you.
Absolutely. The sense of tawakkul in the passages is so vivid and so obvious. As you were talking, the idea of letting go came to my mind. Sometimes we become so attached to specific things in life, and actually perhaps sometimes it's the next step that Allah holds for us is primarily reliant on us letting go of what we have now. The idea of attachment, Allah says, even at that most basic thing that you have, just leave it. It has a powerful message to it. Okay, Sam?
I feel the same thing, but in terms more of that current context of Muslim's context, where everyone was sort of convinced by the magic and was influenced by the magic that was going on in that time. And when it says throw it down, I felt as if it just throw down all of these false beliefs that you have. And when Allah tells you to seize again the snake, that it sort of sees what Allah has shown you, rather than this false magic that you believe in, and throw away all these false beliefs and then seize what the truth is.
Absolutely. other thoughts? Hikmah, any hikmah you have? You know the word hikmah means wisdom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually had a question about the letting go aspect. You know when you said like we have to let go, sometimes it's what's best for us. How do we know that's what's best for us in that moment?
Well, that's a great question. Musa alayhi salam had seen a sign. Allah is addressing him directly. That's a big sign. Sometimes we, in our own lives, we can't resist those signs. We do have those signs, but we can't resist them. Sometimes it's not that obvious as well. It's one of those challenging situations, especially when it's somehow hanging. I don't know whether to go forward or to stay where I am and that. I don't think I have any clear-cut answer to this. I think it's more of a case-by-case thing, where one needs to really gauge and perhaps do this sort of practice. Being self-aware, examining the stuff that I have. Okay, think of a job, for example. You know, am I really enjoying myself, my time in this job, or not? If I'm not enjoying myself, do I have the capacity to move on? Do I have the skills with which I can work somewhere else, or other places, and this and that? So I guess if you know, we just discussed the idea of being resourceful. This is something that can help us become like that, having the power to let go. Mainly, we don't let go because we become so attached to specific things, and we don't invest much in ourselves. We don't invest much in our skills. Those skills are very liberating because they make your own value in your own self. Like Ali ibn Talib used to say, قِيمَةُ الْمَرْءِ فِي نَفْسِهِ. Your own value is in yourself. When you invest in things rather than in your own self, you end up being too attached to things, to specific positions, to specific jobs, specific whatever, individuals. I don't know if this clarifies a bit. Yeah. Yes, Christian, did you raise your hand? Okay. Yes. Yeah.
Just on that point, Sheikh, I just want, like, when you say invest in yourself, the same question applies. Right? How can you tell that your investment is becoming of value? With things in this world, if you invest in something, you see the price go up. You can see certain things.
Sure.
When it comes to yourself and you investing in yourself.
A good example. We always say you will never go wrong with education. Why? Because with education, you are literally investing in your own self. When you invest in other things, you don't necessarily invest in yourself. And that what this takes is that we talk about re-examining. It is a good process of re-examination. It doesn't happen haphazardly. It does take a good pause. We don't pause. We live in a very fast-paced life. That's why part of this you could actually read this way: the power of pausing and thinking. وَمَا تِلْكَ بِيَمِينِكَ يَا مُوسَى. Pause and ask the most basic question. Because we really live a really fast-paced life, you end up not appreciating what you have. And by definition, not knowing who you are, not knowing what your talents are, what you're really good at. And I've been here for almost 8 years. One of the most resistant questions I've been asked: how do I know what my talents are? That means we wouldn't pause actually to ask. I've really come across this a lot, like people doing degrees for years and years, and it's not very clear to them, why am I doing this? I'm not really sure if computer science is my thing. So what it takes is this. It means self-aware, having that sense of re-examination, pausing and reflecting. These are or qualities we associate with Musa alayhi salam in that very brief passage. وَمَا تِلْكَ, posing to ask the most basic questions. Because one can easily get carried away by the pace of life. Yeah. Yes?
But you know when we like re-examine ourselves to see if we've changed, how can we truly be honest with ourselves when we do that? Sometimes we're like dishonest to
Wonderful.
convince ourselves.
That's another good question. Having a mentor. That's one of the things that we've lost in this culture. Having someone who supervises us, having someone who's honest enough and who knows enough to say to us, you know, you deviated here, you need to rethink this, you need to rethink that. Musa alayhi salam has actually asked for that. وَاجْعَلْ لِي وَزِيرًا مِنْ أَهْلِي. Give me wazir. What does the wazir do? It's like what a minister would do today. A president would consult the minister because they know, you know, they are experts in economics, they are experts in education. They might know more than the president, but who takes the decision? It's the president, right? So to have someone who guides and is willing to give you feedback and that, those mentors or those mentors we you know, actually in the past, teachers used to be mentors in the very same time. But today it's become more of just a job. It was a sacred profession. But today, how many teachers do you really connect with and you still have, you maintain a good relationship with them and you take them as role models? No, very little. Very few, you may think of. But Musa, despite the fact that he's been a prophet, he's a prophet, Allah said him on the your side, he said, I actually want a mentor. I think my brother is older, so to me he's wiser, he is more eloquent, so I'm taking him as a mentor. So mentors are capable of helping us with this sort of re-examination. Yeah. We've, at some point, maybe a couple of months ago, we were discussing how do I get spiritually disciplined. And we discussed 4 methods that Ghazali had introduced that help us literally, you know, be spiritually informed. He talks about having a shaykh or having a mentor. I mean, he maybe inshallah some other time. I don't want to give it that. It's a spiritual. It's a due treatment. How do we go about that sort of fixing, reforming ourselves, and examining what we're doing, Other thoughts or questions before we move? Yes.
Sorry, what are the 4?
That's what I said. I mean, I'd rather keep them for maybe for a future discussion because it's a very lengthy discussion. But in very brief terms, there is a lot of details that we could go into with those. He says the first one is having a teacher or a shaykh. A second is having a good, honest friend. The third is what was it?
A vigilant enemy.
You learn from your enemy, absolutely. He says your enemies are often critical of you. And because they are critical of you, what they do is they literally pick the most serious thing in you. So Ghazali says learn from them. The fourth one, he says it's mixing with people. Mixing with people. Mixing with people, of course, moderately. He says it will teach you how to be patient. If you don't mix with people, naturally when you mix with people, you will, in some occasions, you will be offended, you will be insulted. How do I respond to those situations? Ghazali says, subsequently, you will get to learn how to be patient. when you see people suffer from specific diseases or something, you get to appreciate what you yourself have in health, have in wealth, whatever. So the power of mixing with people with a sense of awareness. I'm aware, why am I doing this mixing? Otherwise, we actually don't mix it most of the time. We don't get to learn anything. Because we immerse ourselves, not knowing why am I mixing? Why am I gaining out of this? We mix for the sake of mixing. So he talks about those. There is. I honestly would want to cover this in a more extensive discussion, with a more extensive conversation on it. As you know, there are extremes to this world. But the point that he was trying to make is that one needs to have some form of re-examination and questioning through one of those forms. He actually takes the first one as the most important one, and he says with these other three, these are not as authentic as the first one, because your enemy could be someone who fabricates things about you. How do I learn from that? With mixing, it's not always very clear. With your friend, they might not necessarily be the most knowledgeable about what is right and what is wrong. Therefore, they can't give you the best answer and the best advice. But with a teacher, with a shaykh who knows what he's doing, you get the best form of spiritual discipline. But again, hopefully I can say more maybe in the future, inshallah, next week or something. Happy to, if you guys are interested, I'm happy to cover this more extensively, maybe next week or something. I was hoping to talk about how to introduce Islam through the higher objectives of Islam, rather than the 5 pillars of Islam. But perhaps another time. I feel so exhausted. It's been almost 2 hours. But if you have any questions on this, happy to. Any thoughts on the message? So to summarize, yes.
Maybe not today, but I wonder if at some point we can cover how Muslims have understood miracles, how they exactly happen, and how does Allah intervene?
Absolutely.
And does He?
Sure. What defines a miracle? Absolutely. We'll come across this perhaps when we get to cover Musa encountering the magicians. This will definitely come up. So to summarize, we talked about, at least in my coverage of this, the idea of the formation of a leader, the self-awareness, the idea of re-examination, the gradual engagement, so to speak, the power of reflection, the power of letting go. We also talked about the stuff that Moses asked. It's more, he was asking for skills. He was not asking for resources. He himself was asking to be more resourceful. As in, اشرح لي صدري, يسر لي أمري, make me more fluent, make my heart more open, more expansive. Give me a mentor, that is his brother, وجعلني وزيرا من أهلي. And the thing about Wazir's his primary function is just to give advice in the first place. But also it can the word the kalimat wazir in Arabic, wazir. Some scholars, some linguists would say it comes from wizr. Wizr means someone who carries with you the burden of something. Okay? The second one, it says actually it comes from wazara. Wazar. No, the Quran says kalla la wazar. In Surah Al-Qiyamah it says kalla la wazar. Wazar means refuge. There is no refuge. You can't escape. إِلَىٰ رَبِّكَ يَوْمَئِذٍ الْمُسْتَقَرِّ. Right? And there are linguists and grammarians who would say it actually comes from mu'azara, as in someone who literally helps you, who collaborates and cooperates. But in all, it comes down to someone who advises, who is honest and gives you counsel, good counsel. So Musa was asking for having a good person to consult. وَجَعَلْ لِي وَزِيرًا مِنْ أَهْلِي. He was not actually asking for him to collaborate and share whatever task he was entrusted with. Any other points? Okay. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد ان لا اله الا انت نستغفرك ونتوب اليك. ان شاء الله we'll see you next week.